Is é mo frivolo jogus mo moron mar uachtarán cuman man mún seorí era. Fáiltear a chribh rót go léirniu, go dtí árgrinú blian túil seo. Don ceathrú uair is céad. Minister, distinguished guests, family, friends and colleagues, it is my honour to address you in Wexford as ASTI President at our 104th convention. Minister Naughton, we welcome your presence today at your first ASTI convention. We are pleased you are here to listen to teachers' voices, the expert practitioners on the ground. Engagement between policymakers and practitioners is essential. The strength of our education system depends on shared understanding of both its ambitions and the daily realities of members' working lives, involving now growing complexities, stress, and little time. Today I will discuss key issues of concern to teachers, namely the senior and junior cycle, workload including psychosocial risks, recruitment and retention, extra hours which include Crow Park hours, and also the SNS or supervision and substitution hours, social change guidance with parental leave, career progression, or as I call it, lack of it, the post of responsibility. So we'll start by the senior cycle. Minister, I stand here representing a membership which prioritise the integrity of our education system, students' futures, and the national and international reputation of the Leaving Cert over any interests of their own, including pay adjustments. We recognise that stability and excellence of schools are fundamental to Ireland's global standing and its ability to attract direct foreign investment. However, we find ourselves at a crossroads where foundations are being undermined. ASTI members have demonstrated immense restraint and commitment to industrial peace by engaging with the Public Service Agreement. Yet, the results of a recent ballot, 68% rejected the senior cycle redevelopment implementation support measures. Quite a mouthful. We call it the scrism, but it's the implementation support measures. 67% of our members voted in favour of industrial action. This reflected a grave and critical concern. Teachers were asked a simple question: do you believe the supports are adequate? Our members replied, no, they do not. Members want legitimate concerns addressed and want improved, targeted supports for students. ASTI members have fully honoured commitments to the Public Service Agreement 24-26 and engage fully with senior cycle redevelopment, despite apprehensions. We have acted with integrity and focus. The current trajectory of senior cycle redevelopment is demonstrating growing pains. Previous calls for a one-year pause was dismissed, yet now tranche 2 and 3 subjects, accounting, English and maths, are paused indefinitely, proving that this accelerated timetable was unsustainable. Minister, this reform promises equity and excellence, but it embeds greater inequality and compromises excellence. The high-stakes nature of Leaving Cert remains unchanged. It still serves as the primary entrance exam for third-level education through the CAO system. Far from reducing stress, new requirements for additional assessment components worth a minimum of 40% in every subject have piled massive pressure on students and teachers. This 40% weighting is educationally unsound and is in stark contrast to international practices. For example, the International Baccalaureate, that has 20% of an internal assessment model. Furthermore, we may witness the birth of a grind school explosion. When 40% of a grade is determined by project reports that can be completed outside the classroom, the social divide widens. Affluent families can afford private grinds costing as much as €850 annually. They can afford high-end laptops, premium generative AI subscriptions like ChatGPT Plus or Claude Pro. This creates an uneven playing field where the integrity of the exam is completely compromised. Teachers are being asked to authenticate work that they cannot possibly verify. As out-of-class written reports are highly susceptible to AI generation and, crucially, external influence. While the third-level institutions move towards presentation-based models to combat AI, this senior cycle redevelopment inexplicably moves in the opposite direction. We ask, Minister, that our teachers be covered by a full and comprehensive indemnity in relation to additional assessment components. The infrastructure deficit in our schools further exacerbate this inequality. We cannot expect to deliver a 21st century curriculum in dilapidated 20th century facilities, with a chronic lack of specialist rooms, science laboratories, equipment, safe storage, and reliable broadband. Schools lacking modern IT infrastructure are being left behind. Minister Naughton, the €48 million investment in the new DESH strategy to 2035 and the DESH implementation plan 26 to 28, along with the new DESH Plus scheme, are most welcome and necessary. But now we urgently need a full audit of science and IT facilities and targeted funding to bring laboratories and IT facilities up to international standards. Laboratory and IT technicians are urgently needed to support this new system. From the educator's perspective, workloads would become unsustainable. Teachers will absorb administrative burdens of storing and digitally uploading AACs without any allocation of additional professional time for planning, preparation, and admin duties. This initiative overload during the last number of years has left the teaching workforce exhausted and overwhelmed. Students will face deadline fatigue and burnout as they juggle multiple AACs across 7 subjects. We call for a move towards AI-resistant models, such as supervised, evidence-based assessment or oral presentations. We welcome today's announcement from the Minister in regard to an AI in Schools external advisory task force to be established. While we await the details, it may be a step in the right direction. We suggest the SEC provide a user interface for students to upload their projects. Fostering student agency while relieving teachers of purely administrative tasks. Teachers would provide oversight on a separate user interface. I wish to highlight a comprehensive Irish Science Teachers Association, the ASTI. It's a publication of theirs, the WAT report on the implications of AACs in the science subjects, published in February 26, very recently. This reports major systematic shortfalls in infrastructure and AACs. Minister, have you read and reviewed this report? We seek a resolution where all parties feel listened to, where the reputation of the Leaving Cert, now called the Senior Cycle, as a fair and trusted system is preserved for the sake of our students and our country. Furthermore, why implement the senior equivalent without reviewing junior cycle? Senior cycle is being developed without a comprehensive review of junior cycle framework that came before it. We have received 4 interim reports from the Junior Cycle University of Limerick study, but no final report has been released. Why not? Why are we implementing the senior equivalent before we have fully assessed the junior version, or fixed any faults or weaknesses identified by the UL study? A critical issue is the abandonment of higher ordinary and foundation levels in the junior cycle, which serves no one. We need to return to higher and ordinary levels in all subjects, with the foundation level for Irish, English and math. It is not students' fault when there is no level to suit their specific need. While Level 2 programs exist, they are unsuitable for many students who would find ordinary level papers perfectly appropriate, especially in challenging subjects like science or languages. True inclusion cannot exist if the exam system is designed in a way that denies pupils a realistic chance to pass, effectively excluding them. We must address workloads and stress levels within schools. The requirement of 2 classroom-based assessments per subject at junior cycle created significant pressure. Yet, we are now introducing AACs to all subjects for the senior cycle. It took 10 years to change grading bands in junior cycle. We hope that early rapid reviews fix identified issues within a single 2-year cycle. We moved forward with senior cycle without addressing fundamental failures of the junior cycle framework. Why have lessons not been learned? Overload, stress and burnout, as evidenced, are an integral part of the working lives of teachers. This is not a sustainable position. Stress is a hazard, a growing risk, for a myriad of reasons as stated in this speech. This is the reality of working lives of teachers in schools. Just as an overburdened power tool without a functioning overload switch will burn out, so too will teachers. They are suffering work overload and accompanying stressors. We must put in place overload switches to prevent this and promote workplace health. The 2005 Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act provides for this. It speaks of protections from and preventions of risks to safety, health and welfare at work, and of managing and conducting work activities in such a way as to prevent, so far as reasonably practical, the risks. This Act places a statutory obligation on employers to identify and assess all workplace risks, including psychosocial risks. Firstly, we are calling on all schools to comply with the 2005 Act to carry out a psychosocial risk assessment, an assessment of workplace stressors, using a recognized assessment tool such as Work Positive every 2 years, and a report on this to be included in all whole school inspections. The European Agency for Occupational Health and Safety has psychosocial risks, PSR, as its campaign focus for the next 3 years. The ASTI has led in this respect of working life. We must join with the European Agency and start to take
workplace stress seriously. The HSA, Health and Safety Authority's current strategy commits to collaborate with stakeholders to amplify prevention activities, promoting compliance through advisory committees and work programs. Secondly, we join with other ICTU affiliates in seeking the establishment of an advisory committee for psychosocial risks, PSR, as part of the HSA structures. A Department of Education document titled Wellbeing Policy Statement and Framework for Practice did not involve education stakeholders in preparation of the original document. It's presently being updated, and this must include consultation with education stakeholders. So thirdly, we call on the Department of Education and Youth to engage with teacher representatives and ensure that the statutory rights of teachers and staff to a safe and healthy working environment are encompassed in the updated document. Schools where everyone's well-being can flourish. Implementing these three measures would lead to a sustainable working environment with the appropriate overload switches in place to ensure a safe working environment. Here we are in 2026 discussing recruitment and retention crisis that has moved from a warning to a daily struggle in schools. The reality for anyone entering the profession is discouraging. Graduates must complete an expensive and unpaid 2-year professional master in education, PME. Only to take them on a 27-point pay scale that takes years to climb. No wonder so many immigrate for better pay and career progression elsewhere. For those who wish to come home, we must ensure that teachers working abroad have their experience fully recognized in our incremental pay system. Penalizing teachers for gaining valuable experience overseas is a self-defeating policy that keeps some of our best talent away. Even when teachers stay, the casualization of the job is a major hurdle. Last year's announcement of a 1-year CID was a step forward, but a contract is only useful if it comes with full hours. You cannot build a life or pay rent on a part-time, fixed-term basis. New teachers need full hours from day one of appointment. Another factor making a teaching career unattractive is the high pupil-teacher ratio in Ireland. Pushing classes to 30 students increases workload and stress to unsustainable levels. When our brightest students look for career paths, they want a profession that offers manageable work-life balance and the ability to actually teach, not just manage a crowded room. Currently, the pupil-teacher ratio is a direct barrier to making teaching a sustainable career. It also affects students. Because of teacher shortages, schools are cutting subjects, meaning less choice for students. Classes are crowded with mixed ability and common level classes. There are not enough teachers to staff separate higher level streams. In some cases, crucial special needs resources are diverted just to keep general classrooms supervised. Previous ministerial responses like upskilling existing staff or employing retired teachers are temporary patches. The underlying issues remain. We must halve the PME to 1 year and fix promotional structures, fix the long pay scale, large class sizes and unsustainable workloads. Another important issue for teacher retention, work-life balance and equity is the block release model of parental leave. Other sectors have moved towards more flexible day-a-week models. teaching remains one of the few professions where block release is the standard. This lack of flexibility in parental leave entitlement is a disincentive driving teachers from the profession. Young teachers drowned under a workload of initiative overload and Crow Park hours. Many feel they cannot say no to unpaid extra hours and work because they worry about whether their contract will be renewed next year. This undermines the professional voluntary spirit of teaching. If we want qualified teachers in front of every class, we have to make this a career worth joining and staying in. This means full hours, a shorter pay scale, a fair pupil-teacher ratio, and a training process that does not put people in substantial debt before they even start their career. Minister, we must revisit and reimagine the additional hours expected of teachers in post-primary schools, not to reduce commitment, but to restore balance, trust, and professionalism. The 33 Crow Park hours introduced during austerity, added to an existing 12 hours from previous agreements, totaling 45 hours of unpaid extra work. Wait for it, convention. This has become a source of anger, deep anger, as workload and time demands have increased. The SNS, or Supervision and Substitution Scheme, requires 43 hours annually. This includes 6 Haddington Road hours that were never returned, unlike many other sectors. Some teachers were permitted to opt out of SNS at a financial cost. This facility is no longer available, further highlighting issues of inequality across the profession. These hours do not represent collaboration, but a lack of trust and value in our teachers. Teachers fully support and deliver essential school activities, parent-teacher meetings, staff meetings, subject department meetings, and open nights, professionally and willingly. Teaching is a vocation. Teachers give far beyond timetabled hours through extra supports for student and wide-ranging extracurricular involvement. They also take part in significant junior and senior cycle reforms, investing substantial additional time and energy to implement change. During COVID-19, teachers quickly adapted to online teaching and returned to classrooms earlier than many sectors to ensure education continued, while supporting students through an exceptionally challenging period. Has this been forgotten so quickly? Given those contributions and a myriad more, it is both fair and reasonable that additional hours are revisited and returned. This is not a concession, but recognition of what teachers have already delivered. It would play an important role in addressing workload and in reducing teacher stress and burnout. We call on you, Minister, to act on this as a clear, meaningful acknowledgement of the value teachers bring to students and our education system. If we want a strong, sustainable system, teachers must feel trusted, respected, and properly valued. You may even be remembered as the best Minister for Education since the great Donna O'Malley for getting rid of the Crow Park hours, Minister Naughton. We gather at a time of global uncertainty, conflict, displacement, digital manipulation, social media saturation, and economic pressures shape the lives of many pupils. These issues inevitably manifest themselves in increasingly diverse classrooms, reflecting a changing Ireland and a changing world. Diversity enriches our school communities, but also brings additional responsibilities. Teachers are fully committed to supporting students from different backgrounds, but inclusion without adequate resources, training, funding, and time is not inclusion, it is tokenism. In Irish post-primary schools, guidance is a vital pillar of student success. Yet the current student to guidance counsellor ratio is stretched too thin. Current figures shows ratios as high as one guidance counsellor, wait for it, to 583 students in non-DESH schools. This is in stark contrast to the international best practice ratio of 1 is to 350. Due to the current in-quota status, guidance provision in many non-DESH schools is now lower than during the 2005-12 period. This is deeply concerning. When one professional is responsible for nearly 600 students, the safe space needed for mental health support and career coaching becomes a bottleneck rather than a bridge. Strengthening this provision is about ensuring counsellors have the dedicated time to reach students. By lowering ratios, we move from reactive crisis management to proactive support, ensuring no student's future or well-being falls through the cracks. In Ireland, digital abuse of post-primary teachers has evolved from occasional rate my teacher comments into a sophisticated and persistent challenge. This issue is a priority for the ASTI and should be for the Department of Education and Youth. Especially following the full implementation of the Be Kind anti-bullying procedures. Post-primary teachers suffer from digital abuse through social media, non-consensual recordings in classrooms, impersonations, and cyberbullying. The always-on nature of digital abuse means teachers often feel they can no longer escape the classroom. A 2024 survey indicated that approximately 1 in 5, or 20%, of second-level teachers had experienced work-related cyberbullying, leading to increased rates of burnout and anxiety. Students and society are grappling with the impact of social media, digital abuse, and malign influences, such as the manosphere. Awareness, training, and guidance are essential tools for this modern issue. Supports must be put in place for victim abuse. The landscape changed significantly with the establishment of Commission na Man, that's Ireland's media regulator. Under the Online Safety and Media Regulations Act 2022, platforms are now legally required to have a notice and takedown mechanism. If a teacher reports harmful content and the platform fails to act, a formal complaint can be lodged with the regulator. Coco's Law remains the primary tool for prosecuting severe harassment. Distributing harmful communications with intent to cause harm is a criminal offence in Ireland, punishable by up to 2 years in prison. The ASTI has developed a digital rights hub on its website, containing links and advice for teachers in this regard. I want to acknowledge the ASTI Digital Rights Committee and contributions from convention speakers and others. I know of several upsetting incidents of digital abuse to teachers, and we, as ASTI members, stand with and support them. We welcome the development of Senior Cycle Level 1 and Level 2 learning programs, which recognise the diverse needs of students. This represents an important step towards a more inclusive senior cycle. However, we are deeply disappointed that students on these programs are subject to a verification process rather than a formal state examinations one. This raises concerns regarding its credibility, consistency, and recognition of the achievements. It risks creating a two-tier system at senior cycle. There is clear precedence within the State Examinations Commission for the assessment of practical and coursework components. For example, in subjects such as construction studies and art, where students' work is externally assessed and standardised. A similar approach should be applied to these programs to ensure fairness, consistency, and parity of esteem. While the allocation of additional administrative hours for special education needs is a positive step, it is insufficient. Every school requires a qualified SENCO to coordinate provision, support teachers, and ensure that inclusion is delivered effectively. Presently, this role exists on an informal basis, frequently carried out by teachers with additional qualifications, but without clear recognition, defined responsibilities, or appropriate supports. This lack of structure makes the role unattractive and unsustainable. If we are serious about inclusion, we must invest in the people who are central to delivering it. Without a properly recognized and supported SENCO role, there remains a clear gap between policy ambition and classroom reality. We remain in austerity regarding promotion and career progression in schools. Restoration of the post system has not been completed. In 2008, approximately 52% of post-primary teachers held a post of responsibility as a percentage of the total staff. Today, in 2026, that has dropped to around 32%. While our workforce has grown significantly to meet rising student numbers, the number of promotional posts have not come close to keeping pace. We are asking 1/3 of our staff to carry a leadership workload that was once shared by more than half. To compound matters, schools have become much more complex places, but are expected to be the panacea for these issues. Due to the reduction of posts, staff rooms have turned into places of competition rather than collaboration. The application process often feels like a lottery, leaving experienced teachers feeling overlooked. Colleagues who entered teaching during the long moratorium are a lost generation. These colleagues have provided years of free leadership and mentoring, yet they find the window for formal recognition remains unfairly narrow as they reach the peak of their careers. We call on Minister Naughton to value experience and ensure the promotional structures are genuinely fair. For this to happen, a trusted appeals process that includes fairness as a specific grounds for appeal is essential. It must be transparent at every stage with an appeals mechanism that is functional and fit for purpose. Crucially, we must address how time is allocated for posts, because for those who do secure a post, The reality is a heavy workload that far outweighs the remuneration for these posts. So we have a strange situation that in some schools we have serious competition for posts, while in other schools we have a lack of interest in people applying for posts. The inconsistency in how these roles are treated must end. It is unacceptable that some AP1 holders are granted 4 hours of release time for their work, while others are not. It is imperative that time is provided directly by the Department of Education and Youth in its allocation to schools. It must be allocated based on other teachers. It must not be allocated based on other teachers having larger classes or students having reduced subject options. Promotion and leadership should not come at the expense of our colleagues' workload and our students' education. To help make the profession attractive, Minister, restore post density to pre-2008 levels and provide a revised, transparent and fair system where teacher career progression is a respected and properly resourced career path. Convention. In recent days, ASTI has only become aware that the preparation of 2 circular letters is at an advanced stage and may be issued to schools after this Easter break. Both circular letters will provide for a dedicated post of responsibility to support the students with senior cycle redevelopment and the Level 1 and Level 2 learning programs. New posts of responsibility are always welcome in our schools as a vital aid in helping our students succeed. However, these circular letters can currently contain a serious problematic provision whereby ASTI members are not eligible to apply. Minister, as you know, we have been working through the senior cycle redevelopment implementation supports issues for several months now, under the terms of the dispute resolutions process of the Public Service Agreement 24-26. The publishing of these circulars would amount to a provocative escalation that would show little regard Thank you. I'll repeat. The publication of these circulars would amount to a provocative escalation that would show little regard for the processes that we are engaging with in good faith. I will quote for the first line of the Public Service Agreement 24-26. Quote, 1.1. This agreement applies for the period 1st of January 24 to 30th of June 26. Provisions of the Building Momentum Agreement and earlier agreements as appropriate continue to apply, save where varied by this agreement, unquote. Of course, the entire framework for promotional posts in schools is a product of a previous public service agreement, including eligibility criteria. I put it to you, Minister, this would be a clear breach of the current public service agreement. The same public service agreement requires ASTI members to cooperate with senior cycle and junior cycle reform within schools. But this measure appears to be crafted to prevent ASTI members meeting that obligation. Thank you. Minister, there are many schools in this country that I would proudly describe as ASTI schools, where all the teachers in that school are members of the ASTI. In those schools, therefore, nobody will be eligible to apply for these posts. This potentially could result in the very skilled, most suitable, dedicated, and enthusiastic teachers not being eligible to provide support for students, especially those students most in need. This will create huge problems for management, especially in dual union schools, manifesting in increased friction, division, disharmony, and destroy staff cohesion. It will also leave certain schools with no support. For example, many voluntary secondary schools. While this would be a clear loss to the teachers in those schools, it would also be a clear loss for the students and their parents or guardians. Ultimately, everything in our education system is there for students. We believe that the student is at the center of everything we do in schools. Is it appropriate then that some students, through no fault of their own, would be denied these support roles? Especially students most in need of supports in the L1, L2 learning programs. Are you, Minister, willing to stand over a decision like this? This circular would, in some schools, lead to the removal of a student resource in order to punish the ASTI for not accepting a package that members felt was inadequate for our education system and for our students. This would directly affect our students and their parents or guardians. ASTI members have and continue to implement the senior cycle redevelopment in our schools for the good of our students and communities, despite practical issues of concern. All we seek are proper supports for students to succeed. It is regrettable that this major support, which would really help pupils, may be denied to ASTI teachers and to vulnerable students. Minister, I truly do not believe that this is your intention, and I ask you to revisit the proposed circular urgently. The ASTI continues to engage within the dispute resolution process in good faith. Minister, I urge you to step back from this precipice. Let us negotiate a meaningful and workable solution to resolve this. Meaningful reform must be grounded in trust, clarity, and proper resourcing. At present, many teachers remain concerned with the pace, scope, and practical implications of proposed change. There's a need for greater certainty for students, for parents, and for teachers themselves. Reform or redevelopment cannot succeed without the confidence of those who have to deliver it. We therefore call for a redoubled concentrated and genuine engagement with ASTI for resolution. Finally, I leave you with a quote from Malcolm X. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Mar chríocht mólam go mór an sárábar a dhéanaan sibh, muinseoirí na tíre, son bhuair gcuid daltaí. Déanaan sibh difriocht mór ina saol. Go raibh maith